For sure. All right, everybody, welcome to the Uptown Music Pedalboard Mechanics 101 class. My name is Andrew Wetzler. I will be your instructor for the day. Um, we are going to go over the different cool things, different ways that you can set up a pedal board. There's many different applications that you could use to do that with, whether or not you're going to be playing professionally on stage to where you're going to need to pack this guy up a lot and move it around, or if you're just trying it out at your house and you're just trying to, do some simple recording or practicing your different ways of playing with your pedals. So, first things first is we'll have to figure out what do we need for a pedal board. So typically it will be how many pedals do you have, or what are you planning on incorporating into your power chain of sound. So if you were just playing in church, you needed to, get a little bit of color going. You wouldn't really need a whole lot of pedals, but there are some different things out there for you. If you're playing live, you might want to make sure that you have better power conditioning, so you're not feeding through to where you got all these weird noises and whatnot when you're not playing. And we're going to make sure that we take care of that today. So let's just look at a few different things for a pedal board. First thing we need to think about is the board. So we've got a few different kinds of boards. This right here is the D'Ardero Expand. This is a pretty cool pedal. It comes with Velcro. You can get all of your gear Velcro down. We've got the extra on the back. It also will expand out. So if you have a lot of pedals and you need to fit them all on your board, you have this guy. It has the option to slide right out. We can really add some pedals to this guy. And it has enough room for power supply, because that's the next thing, is how many pedals do you have that you're going to need supply for. So there's different types of supply. So we have these wall warts is what they're called. These are PSA 120s. This is a DC 9 volt, and it runs at 500 milliamps. So you have to think about your pedals when you go plugging those guys in. So we have this Boss pedal right here. This guy's a PSA, and it takes a 9 volt. So you just need to know if you're running, how many of these you can run in there depends on how many milliamps that your pedal runs. If you overpower this adapter right here, your power supply, you're going to lose your signal. And these pedals just don't sound right when they don't have the full amount of power that they're supposed to have to power those guys. So this is a way to go. And then you would use something like a daisy chain. So daisy chains are these guys right here. You can plug one pedal into another, and you can jump power from one pedal to the next. We also got patch cables that we have to have. These guys are little tiny short cables, mono jacks that run from pedal to pedal. It carries your chain on through there. And like I said, there's a bunch of different power supplies. That's another PA style wall plug, and this is another wall plug. Each one of these are really good to have if you have a small amount of pedals, and if you don't have a lot of room in your chain, then you may want to go with something a little better. This is a Fender engine room. This is a level 8, so it has 8 different outputs that you can run. It has 6 of DC 9 volt at 500 milliamps, and this is isolated power. So what that means is each pedal has one thing going into it to power the pedal. It gives you a better signal, a better power. It doesn't quite take away from the tone of the pedal. Everything is constant with each one of which you come out of, and they got the little patch cables that come with them. And we're going to go through this. We're going to set this guy up on the board today. But you would just simply plug into the right output on this guy. So this guy goes 9 volt. It'll do 12 volt and 18 volt. It has 2 extra accessories. It'll power a USB charger, and it will charge the new C-style USB plugs. So these save got a lot of cool things. You got to have 2 cables, one for your guitar, one that runs to your amp. See what else we would need. If you ever need an extension cord, that might be a good thing to have in your bag to get your power from where you're going to the area that you're going to be performing in. You don't always go to places and play, and they don't always have the best kind of setup for you, so it's always good to have that in the back of your mind, to have some kind of form to power your pedal board. So, all right, we got a few different things that a lot of different ways that you can run a pedal board. First way we're just gonna go pretty simple and easy is just a regular normal kind of change. So when you go to build a pedal board, there's different types of pedals that are out there that you want to make sure they're in the right order. So this is the most important thing you do when you build your pedal board, because you don't want some signals stomping on other ones or squashing them. You may want something that's less affected by tone. You lose from signal from your amp or your guitar when you start adding these in the wrong way. Color is a really big thing, and what you're doing is you're starting out with the purest signal possible, and then you want to color that signal at the end before you send it out to production, meaning amplifier or to a guy that's in a sound booth. So dynamics is the first kind of pedals that we'll be talking about. And that has a lot to do with like clean boost, compressors, wah pedals kind of change the dynamic of the way things sound. And then you always want those first because it's a signal that you're trying to preserve out of your guitar. You work really hard on getting that tone out of your guitar, and you don't want it to mess up through the chain of adding effects in. So the first few things we'll look at are some of those kind of pedals. So let's see, over here we have tone shifting pedals. Where am I at? All right, let's go with like a boost pedal. First thing we're gonna go with is like, let's see, a compressor. This guy here, what it's gonna do is it's gonna make your signal, if it gets to a certain loudness, it's gonna keep that loudness from expanding. It also will bring your signal up if it's not quite loud enough. So that's a good one to have in the front of the pedal board. Okay, so next we're gonna have another type of, let's go with a electro-harmonics pitch. This guy here you're going to want to have in front of your effects, that way that you're pushing your effects with the pitch as well. It sends in there and then it lets the color work like you want it to on the end of it. Then we get into like let's go with like a tube screamer. Put a tube screamer out there. Tube screamer is like a tone boost kind of pedal. It will start breaking up your tubes in your amp. It has different form of clippings. We have some preamps. It's just how it says. You want that to go first. So typically you run your compressor before a preamp. That way you can get the compression you want out of that guy. So then if you wanted to add something a little heavier, a little more sound to that, we can add a distortion pedal in there. So this is more of a medium to high gain pedal. You're going to want your least amount of gain ahead of your high gain, because then you can really boost the high gain pedal to turn it into the sound that you really want. So that guy's going to go in there next. Okay, so once you've got your drive channel, and this is considered your drive, this is going to be something that you're going to make your tone clean, a little more boosted or louder. And then this is going to be what gives you that overall sound that you're looking for. Now you're going to start adding modulation effects, and then you would get into time bass. So modulation effects, what it does is it takes your tone and it'll add color to it. Makes it sound wavy, like tremolo is a modulator. Let's see, we've got stereo chorus flanger. See what else is a good modulation. So we've got rotary. Wah is a modulator, but we'll talk about wah in a minute. Okay, so we'll go with our modulation pedal. This is going to give us that swirly sounds if we want, or the chorus, like if you're playing by yourself and you have a clean channel and you want to sound a little more. The chorus pedal will actually take your tone and add a lot of more tone to it. It makes it sound like there's more than one guitar player up there. So we've got that guy down. We've got our modulations. Then we can get into our time-based effects. So when it comes to time-based effects, you have delay and you have reverb. Okay, so if you were to have your reverb, what do you think that would come before or after delay? Just a quick question for you guys. All right. After, right on. So reverb does come after your delay. So you want your delay to come first, because what that's going to do is that's going to cut your signal or duplicate your signal. And then you'll have your reverb is just kind of like that very end kind of tone that you get out of your amp. So if you need a little bit more, if you don't want it just to be so dry and die on you out, you'll add the reverb, and it just kind of gives it like an open area kind of sound to it, and it's the last thing you have in your chain to color your chain. All right, so figuring out the way we get our chain going, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw those guys up here. So I have some delay effects. Let's see, we got this carbon copy. We'll throw that up there in the delay chain, and then I'll throw a Terra Echo. This is a reverb kind of delay pedal. And then we can go with like our Echo, which is similar to what the Ghost Echo is similar to Terra Echo. I like a lot of modulation and delay in my effects. And then we'll throw the afterneath up here at the end. So the afterneath is like a reverby kind of, it just, when you play, it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. It just keeps that going. It's got a lot of trails to it, so it doesn't just die off on you. All right, so now that we have our pedal board kind of set up the way we want to run it, we're going to go ahead and build this pedal board with power. We're going to patch it together. And then there's another thing to do is when you look at your pedal board, and you go through picking out all these cool pedals, and you're like, oh, I want to put that one on there, I want to put that one on there. Just be careful, because if you put too much on there, one thing is you may not even use it the first place. It just might be there for one cool trick that you have. I've seen guitar players do that a lot. Just have some pedals in there for tricks, you know, for showing off or whatever, and that's totally fine and cool to do. But I know that my power supply right here will feed 8 pedals. So I need to limit my power chain with this one power supply down to 8 to make it efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the pedals that don't necessarily need to be in there. So I'm going to take this guy out since I already have a pretty cool Ghost Echo effect, and we'll throw that in there. We'll leave the afterneath in there. Don't need this much distortion. Well, yeah, let's keep that there. I don't want a pitch shifter. Those are cool and fun to play with. Trick toy right there. And now I think I'll take out these guys and just leave them with these. So now that we have these guys set up, we have to figure out the way that we run our chain. So if you see how it's running, we're going in this side, and then the power chain always goes from the right hand side of your pedal or in the top of your pedal to the left. And then once we get to this pedal, we'll have to get one of these guys that's long enough so we can loop it through to send our signal into the top rack of this guy. And then we're going to run through here out into the amplifier. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this side of this pedal board since I'm not going to be using that side. Just keeps it kind of simple. Gives me more room to work. All right. Sure. It's just how, so typically that's how it runs through a power chain. Yeah, it's just normal protocol. They could have ran it the opposite direction. It would work just the same. So yeah, typically your ends are always going to be on the right-hand side, and then your outs are always going to be on the left-hand side. And that's just the weird way that they designed them to start with. Yeah, sure, yeah. So yeah, and you'll see, and that's another thing to look at when you build a pedal board is where do my inputs go in. Some guys like to have their inputs on the top because it's easier to hide those cables, and you have more room. You can actually set your pedals closer together, so you have more room on your board if you're running out of real estate down there. And then some guys like running it through the outs. But when you start blending different companies together to get the different tones that each company's known to have, then you'll have to kind of compromise about that. But it's always good to look into that when you go to purchasing pedals. Is how do you prefer your pedal board to be set up with the routing of all the patch cables and power that way. So I'm going to go ahead and set these guys off, and we're going to go ahead and put on our power supply on the bottom. That way it's out of sight, out of mind. Got a little bit of a mess going right here, but all right. So, and what's cool about this D'Addario pedal board system is it comes with the Velcro already built into the system, and it comes with the extra Velcro right here. So you can hide your cables on the bottom, or you can have the Velcro to fasten to your pedals to keep them in place. 'Cause that's the last thing you want to do is have it move when you go to click on it, or push into something else, or pull out of your input, or pull one of your power supplies, and then it kills your signal. So setting up a board like this professionally, like we're going to do today, is going to be easier to troubleshoot. It's going to be easier to take things out and add in, and it's going to be easier to move. That's the big thing, is setup time. You want to make sure that the least amount of time that you have to touch anything before you perform, and after you perform, the better prepared you will be for the performance. You don't have to worry about the stress of setting up your gear. One of these days, we'll all be good enough musicians to where we have somebody do that for us, though, right? That's the plan. But yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this guy, flip this pedal board back over. I'm going to mount this guy right up here, and we'll flip it, turn it this way. So I don't have Velcro on this guy, but in one little spot. So I got to make sure that I get it on there and get it in a good spot to where I can add more Velcro to it to hold it down, to give it more if I need to. We've got these extra long straps. So now that I know that I'm going to use these pedals right here, I need to make sure that they all have the right type of power supply. So are they all 9 volt, or any of them 18 volt, or are they all, any of them 12 volt? So looks as like all these guys are 9 volt. And how you tell? Typically most pedals will have the voltage on the front, or they'll be on the back. So we could check it out. Like Earthquaker puts theirs at the top. Benson's good at putting theirs in their logo around the outside. It's in the top. And then for Boss is typically on the back, wherever the power plug goes. Because a lot of times Boss pedals really don't keep the bottom on there very well. And the same for like MXR. MXR is another brand, and they put theirs on the side. So you just have to identify what the power is you need. Some pedals actually come with their own power supply. Some of them don't. Some pedals will not take batteries. Earthquaker is a good example of that. These guys are hand-wired pedals. There's no extra circuit in there for a battery to go in. They keep it simple, keep it easy, and you just plug in with your power supply. Yes, sir. I haven't seen any in my lifetime, except for the type that you would run an amplifier with. Like, so I have down here on the floor is the controller for the Fender amp that I'm using today. This guy's powered through the power system of the pedal itself. This is a MIDI function. So, but most pedals all take power. They're digital, or they're analog. So, and that power is what turns the effect on. If not, if it's off, it's in true bypass. So your signal should be true bypass. Most pedal companies will say that their pedals are true bypass. Some are better than others. We'll just say that. But if you have a true bypass pedal, it's just running the signal straight through it. So you would have to have some type of power to trigger it on. Now, yeah, like a volume pedal. Sure. That's a good point there. The volume pedals are typically not powered. Yes. So they're pedals that operate on batteries. This Boss pedal I have right here is the Modulation MD 200. It's got just about every modulation effect that Boss put out, and this one cool machine right here. It does a lot of cool stuff, and it's got different settings you can change and store settings. You have 4 different memories on it. But yes, this guy will take 3 AA batteries. Most Boss pedals, other than that, like this chromatic tuner, takes 9 volt battery, and that's accessible through the top hatch. So you could incorporate, see I have a battery in this guy. You can incorporate pedals that are powered with a power, or pedals that have a 9 volt battery. Some pedals tend to sound differently when you run a 9 volt compared to PSA in it. So I mean, it's all set up to how you like to run your pedal. Batteries are more expensive over time. You're consuming more. And the thing about batteries is if you shut your board off, at the end of the day, and you don't unplug the inputs to most of your pedals, it's still drawing current out of the battery, and it'll eventually die itself. So the best, most efficient way, it's gonna save you a lot of money in the long run, a lot of hassle, is just to go ahead and get some kind of power supply for your pedal board. Isolated's the best way to go. You can get away with, like, I'll show you a few examples at the end of 3 different pedal boards. I got one that's just kind of thrown together. We've got daisy chains and 1 power supply on it. But like I said, you don't want to sit there and try to add up your math and figure out how many can I fit on this 1 power supply, or have 3 power supplies plugged into something that you don't have a lot of room for power wise. Like, sometimes you go to at, like, practice for me is finding power is fun. Like, I have to run extension cord into, like, the kitchen to run my amp off of, and it's wild. So making sure that you have enough inputs and everything. And wall warts just tend to get they tend to break a lot easier than and I say wall wart just so you guys know, it's these little battery pack guys. They move a lot, you know, they get pulled in and out. They don't hold up as quite as well as one of these guys will. So let's get this guy strapped in. Go ahead and throw a big old strap on there, and we'll start building this pedal board real quick. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy going. So got this guy on, flip it over, and we'll start putting my pedals in the chain, the direction that we talked about. So we're gonna go compressor first, and then I'm gonna go into this preamp, which I don't have stickies on, and we'll still this real quick. Put a little piece on there. That way it don't slip off, because I have to flip it over. That's another good reason to Velcro these guys in. It makes it easier working on and all that good stuff. So get this real quick. Come on now, finger. All right. I haven't seen that or felt that or heard that or experienced that myself. I have never been told that before. There is you don't want to just go. You want to make sure that they're alkaline. You don't want something that's not. You can use rechargeable ones. You can use Duracell. Just make sure that there are a few 9 volts floating around in the world right now that are shorter than others. So, for instance, if you plug into your acoustic with it, it wouldn't reach all the way in to trigger the power system for that. So I've never heard that before, but that's a good question. I should look into that and see what I can find out. But yeah, the best way to go is isolated. But like you'll see, like, let's find something that has. Let's go with this guy. All right. Uh-huh. Need some scissors. All right, so Jeff's gonna go grab me some scissors real quick so I can strap this last one on here. All right, so I'm just gonna strap these 2 guys on real quick. Just need some scissors. Yeah, he boiled his strings. Yeah, that's another thing. It'd be very, yeah. Don't go buying the bargain brand batteries and throw them in there. I've seen guys use the Kirkland stuff. It seems all right, but I still trust the gold copper top brand. Not say no names, but yeah, yeah, for sure. I've heard that too. All right, guys. So we got our pedals on the board. Now we could do one of two things. We can either go ahead and run power to these guys, but I think it's a better idea if we just went ahead and loop patch these together. So what I mean by patching together is we've got these patch cables, and what we're doing is kind of like if you ever use a modulation processor before, like a Boss uh, pedalboard or like a Line 6, Helix, or anything like that. You go through and you pick your channels and whatnot, and it already has like modulation in there, it already has delays in there, it has your drives in there, and that's called a patch. So a patch is just simply a tone that you've created with a few pedals put in one together in a patch. You can get really, really in depth with it to where you patch. You can do loops with your pedal board and have just like modulation, distortion, and one guy turn on by just a click of a MIDI controller. That's another way to patch. But simple patch cable for patching together is it's like a pumpkin patch. One's connected to the other, right? So that's what we got here. I'm gonna go ahead and input to the outputs. Get these guys out of the way. Another thing is when you put your patch cables in there, you don't want to have like a really, really long patch cable. You want to make sure that it's just long enough to where it fits comfortably, because you're going to have to organize those patch cables in your board. So let's go ahead, and I like to use the ones that are like 6 inches long. All right, got those guys in. There's all different kinds of patch cables out there. They've got the kinds. Dario just came out with some they're releasing that you can build your own. It's kind of like it has the ends and it has the length of cable. You cut your length down to where you need it to go, and then you just push that end in and you screw it together. Or you can get kinds that are already made by companies like Mogami's a brand that carries patch cables. Pig Hog carries patch cables. Ernie Ball. There's a lot of them out there. Boss has their own kind of patch cable as well. All right. Typically, I mean, I've used I got mismatched kind of cables going right now. You just want to make sure that there's nothing broken. If you don't have nothing, if it's not feeding back or anything like that, and patch cables go out more common than people would expect them to. Just because, I mean, if you don't have it strapped down, it's a lot harder on that system to perform without being broken, right? So um, typically, it can affect your tone a little bit. I mean, be leery of what you find on Amazon. Um, I mean, it's great for a lot of things, but there's a reason why there's music guys out there selling gear. It's because it's just better stuff. Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things to where you just have to just trust a reputable um, patch cable company and try them out. You know, like Radio Shack used to be a big place to buy stuff when I was a kid, and I'd go buy, and some of their stuff was okay, and then other stuff wasn't. But yeah, you just make sure it's shielded. Typically, you want to make sure that you have um, high-end type of connections. They'll say that the gold-plated ones are the way to go, or the silver ones. You just want to make sure that they're not like all scratched up or broken or anything, and they'll work fine. And if you have one, identify it, get it out of the chain, and you can get it fixed. Most of the time, you can fix all these guys. But Some of you may be wondering, why is there so many outputs on this pedal right here compared to most pedals only have one? So, some pedals you have that you can throw into a pedal board are stereo. So, you can use that. You can run your stereo left and right channels out of your board. If you've got two amplifiers running a stereo mix, you can run left and right from those. This is one of those pedals that allow you to do that. There are a few out there that does. And when you do, it's pretty cool. Like for instance, we have the stereo chorus as a left and a right on this, and it comes into a single input. If you just had this one pedal, and this is all you wanted to play with, you can run two amplifiers and one guitar with this pedal like that. It's like an ABY, but constant A and B. All right, so these guys also can be ran mono by just running out of the mono jack. So you'll see that, you'll be able to identify that. It's always, if there's one or more on here, they'll tell you typically what it is that they are their use is for. So looks like we've got this guy put together pretty good. We've got enough room. I feel like my foot will get in there and not step on everything and stomp things down. I got all of my ins going into my outs and all of my outs going into my ins. All right, cool deal. So now that we've got this guy all patched together, we have a pedal board that is operational and ready to go. So minus our power supply. So I've already identified this guy as 9 volts. If you threw in something crazy, we could do that with the engine room because it has multi voltage. If I threw in this 10-band EQ by MXR, it is a 18-volt pedal. Gives you more headroom. There's Benson has some pedals out, or Broadcaster, I'm sorry. That's a pedal that uses 18 volts. It allows you to push other pedals with it and get more tonality, better sound out of them. Yeah, so this is a 10-band EQ. This is a little bit of overkill for a guitar player. There's a lot of frequency in here that you don't hear with your ears already. But it gives you the option to volume up and boost up. So you can gain up or you can volume up. I have a pedal board with this looped into it. I'm going to show you guys in a little bit how we can use one of these efficiently without killing your tone, but giving your tone a little boost. And what it essentially does is just picks everything up an extra notch. So running that guy would be a little dependent on if you want to boost something or if you want to take everything and then boost all of that. Because it does change the dynamics of pedals. You can I turned my Tube Screamer into a fuzz pedal with this guy. It's strange, but you can change the frequencies on it and you can give it that fuzz kind of clipping sound. All right, so now we've got our stuff going. I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. Sorry about that. Let's flip this guy over and let's get this power running on this thing. So if you see right here, we've got all of these outs. So I already know that I can run 9 volt out of all of these here on this back side. But if I did have the 18 volt pedal incorporated, I would have to swap one of these and use one of these auxiliaries. So I would turn that to 18 volt. I would be able to plug in and it would give it the efficient amount of power that it needs to perform correctly without losing your good tone in your guitar. Or your signal, I should say. All right, here we go. Got all these guys. Pull these guys out. It's kind of like how it happens every band practice for me because I'm lazy. But I'm going to show you guys how much easier and efficient it would be. That's why I know how much time it takes to do this. Because I've been telling myself to straighten my stuff out, and I just haven't had time. And that's another thing, is finding time to do this. It's very, very time consuming. It should take you about a half hour to an hour to properly set up your board, test it out, get it rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and send this guy down here. It's one of my short ones, so I'm going to keep it close. Yes, ma'am. The pedal won't completely turn on. It'll kind of be like a dead battery's dying and it just starts fizzing out. It'll sound fizzy, may not even work at all. It just depends on the the way that that pedal is designed. But typically, yeah, you want to make sure that you have enough power. Oh, you're. Oh yes, yes. If you plugged a 9 volt into an 18 volt as like power supply, oh yeah, it would fry that pedal. Yeah, it would be no good. Toast. Kiss it goodbye. I misunderstood what she'd said. I thought she was talking about plugging a 9 volt power into an 18 volt pedal. I didn't know. You s Okay, yeah. Don't do that. Yeah, that is the first no. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. 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 Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Smoke show. Hey, who turned on the fog machine? That's my pedal board. Sorry. Say burnt. Oh, okay. There you go. It's a smoke show right there. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so you guys see I kind of got these guys fed. I'm kind of pushing down and coming around, so it's kind of out of the way. It's not on the top, so your foot's not going to snag anything or catch anything right there. Out of sight. It's nice and comfy in there. All right, go ahead and finish this guy. Also, another thing, let me show you something real quick. So there are some pedals out there that allow you to chain together, so they're patched together with power. So it's like a daisy chain. So Boss is known for that. You can send your PSA into this guy, and then you can run a daisy chain out of this as long as you're using the correct amount of power going in to power the rest of the daisy chain. Exactly, exactly. I learned that from you, my friend. That day that you came in and told us all about it, it was really nice to have that conversation with you. So the pedals will have milliamp ratings on them. Some are 100, some go up to 3, some are like 5. Um, a lot of times they're not actually written on the pedal. They'll be inside the manual for the owners, the manual for the pedal. That'll give you specifics on how much milliamps that pedal is going to use. So, for instance, if I had this guy it runs at 500 milliamps, this guy runs at 300 milliamps. Let's just say this guy runs at 100 milliamps. That gives me 800 milliamps. So if I had a power supply that was 1,000 milliamps, I have enough milliamps in there to power it, and then the rest of it would go back into, I believe, the power supply, Ron. The extra milliamps that's not used, it just goes back into the current, give or take. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we are, almost there, guys. Okay, so yes, sir. Yeah, I'll get it there in a second. Okay, so got this guy all together, patched together. Now we'll get it tested in a second. That one little cable right there. This would be a good time to have a 90-degree angle cable. So let's get this guy over so we can see what's going on. So, all right, so as you guys see, I got all the patch cables in, ran together the way they're supposed to. This is a little bit of a longer one, so I ran it underneath. I always run, this is the power. Let's get this guy down. Go underneath my patch cable. That way it'll hide better that way. And I try to do that. I try to make sure that my power supply goes underneath the patch cables, so they're not just sticking up. This is what I have to live with. I can always pull it down. You can always add straps in there too. Velcro straps are really good for cleaning it up. And that's what I'm about to do on the bottom now that I have everything set up. But first I want to test the board and make sure that my signal runs through. And then we can set levels on this guy, because what you're going to do is you're going to plug one in. You got a level that you want to set, your line level, so it doesn't get any louder than that. You adjust your effects through there. Now some you may want to be louder than others. If you're trying to do like a solo boost, you would want that pedal turned up a little more. Overdrives are typically used for that reason. You can run your preamp the whole time if you wanted to. Set that as your volume and then build the rest off of it. So another thing to think about is the effect level when you're using your effects. You don't want them to be turned all the way up, because then it takes away from your dry signal, which is your guitar tone. So the wetter your signal is, the more that your signal is being covered up by the effects that you're using. So that's what another thing to do is go through there. So I have my power plug for the engine room. Run that guy into here. Leave that on the outside when you set it up, that way that it is easy to get to. All right. Let's see if I can reach my extension cord. There we go. All right. Okay, so there we are. Go ahead, I'm going to click on pedals. This one needs an input to come on. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my guitar input in right here, just to test this one. Oh, we're about to play something in a second. All right, so got that guy going. All right, that pedal's coming on. This one's coming on. This is coming on. On. Perfect. So I have power to all of my pedals. That's the best thing you want starting out. So now I'm going to turn them off, because you don't want to be the synth wall up in here today, which is pretty cool video if you guys have never seen it. This guy has a synth wall that's just amazing, and he plays guitar through it like a 10-string. So get your guitar that you play on. All right, we got our amp. This is going to go to our amp, so that's going to be the output on your last pedal in the chain. So we got that guy there. Boom. All right. Typically your pedal board would be on the ground, but for our reason we got it up here so I can see what's going on. All right, got plugged in there. Got some picks around here somewhere. There we go. All right, so now just need to turn my amplifier off of standby. Okay, let's just test the signal, see if the signal's going through. As soon as the amp heats up. Did I turn it off? Sure did. Okay, so I must have done something wrong. Let me chase my channel. See where I got input, output. In, out, in, out, in, out. Ah, boom. It's an expression. Hey, there you go. So it happens. It happens. That's why we test them out. And especially if you're not familiar with the pedals that you're using, like you haven't used them a lot. Um, so there we go. Perfect. See, that's why we have you guys helping me out today, because I think you guys are going to teach me how to do this correctly. All right, let's see. Uh-oh. Off? I don't know why somebody turned it off on me. That's fine right there. All right, so our signal's going through. Awesome. So, chromatic tuners, first thing I put in the signal. It also works as a, you can bypass. So you can kill your signal. That works good for changing guitars out and just tuning your guitar in between songs if you have to. Get that back on. So this compressor is going to be in clean channel compression to actually boost your signal. So let's go ahead and give this a little bit more. Now this guy will show you the reduction. All right, let's go ahead and add some preamp. And I'm just using this simply as like a clean kind of boost. All right, got a little bit of breakup in there, it sounded like to me. And then here's your plumes. It gives you a little bit of that. So, whoa, that sounds like it's super loud. Let me turn it down. Somebody had the gain cranked on it too. Sounds. Let's play some metal. All right. There we go. So we got that guy going. Let's make sure. There we go. Let's try some modulation. Let's go with a little bit of this. Let's set our delay up a little bit, give it a little more mix. So right now we've got 3 pedals on in our pedal chain. We got the compressor, the Benson, preamp, and the carbon copy. You can really hear what that studio compressor will do to your tone. And then let's see underneath how it sounds. It sounds like you're in a big cave or a canyon playing guitar. All right, so that sounds like everything's copacetic, working good. Let's work on this guy a little bit. I don't know if that sounded right. Let's see. There we go. So as you see, you can add all kinds of different things into your effects chain. You just want to make sure that your drive channel stuff and your clean boost is always in front. Stuff that you want to color your tone. And then if you ever wanted to run an effects loop, you would run all of your drive stuff, you would want to run through the preamp of your amp. And that means run it straight in the front like I'm doing right now. So that's going in before the amp, preamp, and it's also going into your preamp. So it changes the tone of the output of your amp when you run through that. Adds more character, more color to it, better sound. Now, if you want to run your modulations through your amp through an effects loop, you would run mods, your modulation, your time-based, and your filtered stuff. You would run through the effects loop itself. So I'm going to leave this pedal board up here. I'm going to grab another pedal board that I have set up with the effects loop built in on the pedal board, as well as how we're going to run it out to the amp and the effects loop. If you guys have any further questions, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, and that's the first thing that you want to do when you run your pedal board with a guitar, especially if you change guitars or a lot. The unity of it will change, but so you don't want your pedal to be way loud or than the other going into another pedal. If you click it off, it can make a popping noise, and then again, when you go to click on it, it's just going to be so loud that it just sends your signal through, just wants to cut your head off. So you always want to make sure that you've got your unity, and that's whether or not you have a clean channel kind of tone that you're going for, and or if you want dirty. So you want your clean and your dirty to be really close in volume. One's just going to color more than the other, but you don't want to have one just completely sending signal, because it'll send your signal too much into the next effect, and then it just doesn't sound good. But yeah, I just always make sure that my volumes are kind of close to each other. And then if you wanted something to make your boost happen, you can do that with like one of these guys, boost pedal, or like if you want to run two different like tube screamers or plumes, you can have one that's louder than the other. But typically it's for one thing that you're using it for, and it's for soloing, or trying to go with like a lo-fi, hi-fi kind of sound. You can use pedals for that, which will filter out with these guys. So. Mhm. Okay. So typically after your drive. It'll go after your drive before your time-based modulation effects. You can do it there, or you can go from your guitar, out of your guitar into it. I've done it both ways. I find that it works better at the end of the drive chain. Um, at the end of the drive chain, yeah. And I'll show you this pedal board set up with one of those on there. So that's, yeah. Let me grab that guy for you guys. Sure. Yeah, so it would still go on your chain. It would be in front of your chain, like where so a wah pedal goes in the front of your chain too. Before anything else, wahs take your guitar signal and boost it that way. So talk box is along the same ways. Um, you can throw a talk box in the mix with your delay and stuff like that, but typically you want it before. Um, so after modulation, before delay, you can throw a talk box in, or you can throw the talk box at the very beginning. That's how I would run one, if I ran one. And I've had a chance to use the vocoder. It's a Boss pedal that is a auto talk box that does a lot of different cool things, and it's pretty cool. And it went in the mix after the drive channel. So, but yeah, it's pretty neat. Okay, so sorry about that. So the drive chain are your like boost pedals, overdrives, distortion. So things that's going to take it from clean to just dirty sounding. Yeah. So our drive chain. Yeah. So it goes dynamics and then drive. So it's in the beginning of your chain. Dynamics are going to be like a volume pedal, a wah pedal, or like a compressor. And then you would get into your preamps, and that's going to be your drive preamp, and then you go into like overdrive, and then you get into distortion. So you want your boost first, your drive, like like a blues driver or a tube screamer, a plumes, something with less gain. And then as you go through your drive channel, you add the more gain towards the end with the pedals. Um, so that's how that would go. Any other questions about this guy here? Yeah, modulation, time, and filter. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this amp to standby so I don't have any popping or clicking. I'm gonna grab my secondary pedal board. And we'll leave this guy. I'll just move this stuff over here because I won't need any of that stuff right now. All right, so here is another pedal board. This one's on a pedal train. And this one's got some pretty cool stuff going on with it. All right, you guys can see that pretty well. All right, so we're going to go over this pedal board. This belongs to my friend Pavan Patel. He's the guitarist in my band. And he has a loop set up with his pedal. So what happens with this setup here is, so he has his input, which goes into his tuner up here. It goes into the input of his noise suppressor, because he's using a loop on this guy to loop his noise suppressor through his drive, so he's not squealing or hollering when he's not playing on the guitar. So what he's doing is he's going into, and then he's sending out of this send, and it's coming down here, and it's going into his compressor. And then his compressor is tied in with his super overdrive, and then he's running out of his super overdrive back into the noise suppressor. So that is his effects loop with a noise suppressor. Small little effects loop right here on your pedal board. And then he has an output off his noise suppressor that only sends his drive stuff. So compressor, overdrive, only sends this stuff into the front end of his amp. So he's running into the preamp. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we got our input for our guitar amp. It's going to go into this pedal up here. All right. Okay, so he also has an isolated power supply. He got this guy from Amazon, and it has individual coordinated for what the different types of power that you need, such as the engine room does, where it has the different selection for power. Okay, so that guy's powered through that. All right, so next thing in this chain that we're going to see is right here. So this is going to be what goes through his effects loop. So on his guitar amp, he has an effects loop in the back of it. And I'm going to turn this amp around so you guys can see the effects loop in there. Okay, so this guy has an effects loop, and what that means is it has the preamp side of the amp that goes, and then it puts in a loop in between the drive section and the preamp section. All right, so you guys see over here there's an effects loop. You got an in and a send. So what we're going to do is we're going to run from our pedal board with these guys, some more guitar cables. It's always good to have these laying around, instrument cables. All right, so this guy is going to come out of this pedal right here of the mono. It's going to go into the input of the effects loop. I'll do that in just a second. Okay. All right, so, and then on the other plug, it's going to go to send. It's going to send it back out, and it's going to send that signal into that MXR 10-band EQ. And what he's doing with the 10-band EQ is he's actually boosting the drive channel of his amplifier to get it louder. He's gonna hate me. I'm moving his stuff. There we go. All right. Okay, so now we guys have this guy send in here. We should have a loop through the amp of our effects that we're sending through the amp, and then we'll have our drive going straight into the amp. All right, so on my pedal board right here, or for my amp controller, we should call it a controller, I have my effects loop button. So if I click that on, it's going to engage this effects loop. Only the loop portion of that, because these 3 pedals are going into the front of the amp. So I'll have that there. Okay, so now I'm going to plug my guitar input into the input of this tuner. Okay, and now I have plug in the power supply for, let me get an extension cord. Here we are. I don't know if I should. I'm going to have to just move this up because I don't think, well. Just give me some room. Typically that will be on the floor, so it's not an issue. And then we have our DC in. All right, now we see we have power to the board. So we've got all of our pedals. Let's turn them all on and make sure they're all on. And they're all off now. So now I can show you how an effects loop works through a pedal chain system. And this is a little more advanced, but it's like patching into a pedal board and using the effects loop of your amp. And you can really hear, for instance, when you run delay through an effects loop, it sounds different than what it does when you run through the front end of your amp. It sounds a little more clear. You can hear the delay. You can hear your guitar tone a little better. So yeah, let's just go ahead and turn the amp back on, and we'll hear what it sounds like. Can we hear that with the mic with it backwards like that? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on. We got the tuner. It works good. All right, there we go. All right, so noise suppressor is going to be on. It's going to keep me from squealing. All right. It sure did. Oh, he has it on mute. All right, here we go. Let's go to reduction. So if you had this amp turned up really loud, you'd hear more dynamics out of these pedals to where it would produce more of a white noise. And that's where this, see if when I hit, can you see this light on there? So you see how if I hit it, it goes out and then it slowly comes back in. That's because he has his decay all the way up to the max. So if we turn that down, see how it dies faster, but it comes back sooner. And what that does is that's what's actually buffering your signal to keep it from wanting to sound like an amplifier that's turned on 10 when it's just trying to be quiet. All right, so now we have our effects loop on our amp. See how it's not working? I have to turn on the effects loop with the controller, so I can have these patched in to sound like anything I want. I mean, I could add a distortion channel into an effects loop if I wanted to, but it sounds really good with clean bass effects. So that's like a chorus pedal. Now it's clean because it's an effects loop, so you can use your effects loop pedal to turn on your delay and whatnot now through your amp. So that just added that effect to your amp, such as if you had a digital modulation amp, so or that case. And then you guys, this could be extremely loud, so let me test it out real quick. All right, good. So this is what a boost pedal will do to your tone. So I mean, it keeps the dynamics, the color of everything the same. It just makes your output. So if you got a solo and or you're trying to play ahead of the band, that's what kind of pedal you would need to do that. But that's how you run them through. He has it in the effects loop because it sounds better through his effect loop in his amp because he's boosting the amp instead of the effects with it. If you start boosting the effects, like I said, it can turn them into sounding like a fuzz pedal, and you could have a distortion pedal that's perfectly clean sounding compared to a fuzz. Throw this guy in there, and it will completely manipulate the tone of it. Not saying you don't want to do that. I mean, some guys may want a really cool fuzz tone, and that's a way to achieve it, is running through the front of drive channels or drive pedals with these guys. So that's that in a nutshell, how we set these guys up and get them playing. Now I'm going to show you the last way that you can set up a pedal board, and it's practically just throwing pedals on a board, chaining them together, and then just powering them up. So I'm going to do that real quick as well. So this one I'm not going to plug in and play out of. I'm simply going to just show you guys for visual. All right, so let me go ahead and get this guy out of the way. Sure. Yes. Yes, so you could either run it that way to where all you have them on already, and you just hit a button on your amp, and that sends that effect through there. It's like a patch, just like a Helix or a Stomp or anything like that. Or you can have it to where it's on, and you're just using them as you wish, you know. So it's just another way to color the tone, and it adds so much more possibilities to what you can do without having to stomp like 3 or 4 pedals. I mean, I've seen guys play live, and I'm like, how do these guys do it? You know, they've got 3 or 4 pedal boards, and they're like turning 4 and 5 pedals on at a time with one foot, and it's like, gosh, man, that's why he's famous, I guess. He's got a little circus act on stage. But here we are. So this is another example of a pedal board. This is my pedal board. Like I said earlier, guys, I'm lacking in organization skills. As you see, I'm making a huge mess out of the table up here today. All the cool toys we have in here to play with every day. But this is a Boss BCB 60. This came out about 20 years ago. I've had it ever since. It's missing a lot of stuff. I took it out. I didn't think I needed it anymore. So this guy here already has an effects loop built into it. For sending loops and returning through here, you have 2 outputs, so you can run a stereo out. Oh, got it backwards. So as you see, this is the best way to look at the guy, is how I have it set up. Is I have my compressor first. So this is a dynamic pedal, and then I get into my drive channels right here. So I have a Wampler Thomas Deluxe. It's like a Klon style pedal. I have an Ibanez Tube Screamer, I have a Wazacraft chorus pedal, and a digital delay. I usually have a carbon copy in here, but I used it on the board today. This is my chromatic tuner. That's typically, I run it either the front or at the end of my pedal chain. To me, it doesn't matter where it's at. I simply use it as a kill switch. So if you have one of those noise gates, they also have a kill switch function too, to where it's either mute or reduction. And that's why I use that, because I change guitars a lot when I play. I go in between playing bass, and I have 2 different guitars that I use, so it just makes it simple and easy. As you see, I have a daisy chain here. There's 10 that we could chain together on this guy. I'm only using 5 right now. So I use the power supply. I use a pig nose or Pig Hog power supply, or sorry, excuse me, True Tone is what I use. 9 volt iSpot. This one here is good for up to 1700 milliamps. I think this is one of the best ones on the market. I've used Boss. I've used a lot of different brands. This one offers you the most power for one little pedal. So I also use my wah pedal. My wah pedal goes to the front all the time. Put that in the front of the chain. So we'll just say it's over here. Typically it's on the floor, and then I'll add anything else if I ever want to add something to it. Typically I'll add something in my chain with a battery. That way I don't have to worry about powering or changing my daisy chain up. But as you can see, this can get really, really chaotic, sliding around and all that. This used to have pads in it, but I took them out and I was trying to figure out the footprint I wanted for my pedal board, where I would want to go, and then started taking pedals out, started adding pedals in. That happens when you change bands and stuff like that. So yeah, any of the case, that's what it looks like for a poor man to have a pedal board. Kind of just use what you got. It does have some pretty cool functionalities to it. It does have power in and power out, 2 inputs and 2 outputs, so you can run an effects loop a lot like the pedal board that Pavon had. So do you guys have any further questions on any other way that you'd like to run a pedal board, or are there any pedals out there that you guys just were wondering where they would go? Do you want to hear the pitch shifter? So the pitch shifter pedal simply will send your guitar up either 12 to 24 or down 24, meaning 1 octave or 2 octaves. It also gives you the ability to do harmonies. So you could play like the 3rd or the 5th in the chord along with your single notes. It just harmonizes like that. So really cool pedal. It's got a latch function to where you can either click on it and it automatically just plays in that higher octave at all times, or you can unlatch it to where if you just touch the button, it'll send it up to the octave or down to the octave real quick. It has like a ramp that you can set the time, how fast it gets there or how slow. So it's a pretty cool effect to play with. One of my favorite bands uses it in the beginning of one of their songs. I think it's pretty cool. I'll show you guys how that sounds. Yeah. Okay, so let's grab that guy. I'm going to go ahead and put that amp to standby. All right, so I'm going to add this guy in. I'm going to add it in the front. All right, so we got power in that guy. So this pedal you would want to put in the front before all of your effects. You've probably seen a Digitech whammy pedal. It's a red pedal that Tom Morello uses. He plays for Audioslave and Rage Against the Machine. So if you've heard any of those songs, you've probably heard a whammy effect. It's really cool. You can do a lot of things. You can get that Nashville sound out of your guitar if you wanted to. I don't know if this one will do poly, but we'll see if it does. And poly means it plays more than one. All right. So it just goes. So you can play some really. So you can change this, you can blend it in. It's got 1 octave, 2 octave, 3 octave shifts. Sorry about the loudness on that, but it really goes. Now we go down 3 octaves. So you kind of have it. You can blend your tones, so if you want just the effect. So you can play bass if you wanted to on guitar. It's pretty cool. So that song, Seven Nation Army. He uses a whammy effect to do that with a guitar. A lot of people think it's a bass guitar, but it's not. And then you've got just let's blend them together. So it just gives you a lot of octaves in there. It's like having 3 guys play at one time. And it's just a lot of cool stuff. So that's another pedal that kind of like a trick pedal. It does a lot of cool stuff, but you wouldn't necessarily use it all the time. But really think the coolest part about it is how you can latch it, unlatch it, and do. Let's go to 3 octaves. This is really. Little things like that. So that's pretty cool. That Pitchforks made by Electro Harmonics. They've got a lot of cool stuff out there. There's also the possibility to run a power amp in a pedal board. We have a couple different pedals up front that allow you to do that. So if you wanted a preamp pedal and you wanted to run a power amp behind it, you wouldn't have to have one of those guys at all on stage. You could use a DI and run it straight into the PA system if you really wanted to. But that simply goes from what are you using it for, what do you need it for, kind of situation. But yeah, so this is how you set up a pedal board successfully. The chain of the way that you do it, the different types of power supplies, different type of pedal boards out there. For instance, this right here is a pedal train, Novo 24. This is an Expand. This is number 1, and then we have the Expand 2 right here. Like I said, I have the Boss power board, and that's another pedal train in the other section over there. So yeah, it's just simply figuring out what type of uses you're going to get out of your pedal board. Are you going to play at home? Like something like that would be useful for. Being able to troubleshoot fast, like what we were able to do earlier when I was plugged into expression instead of input. We didn't get any signal, proper power, and then making sure that your pedals are all pretty much matched on their output volume. That way that you're not popping, cracking, or snarling at people when you're playing guitar. But there's many different types of pedals out there. There's many different types of power supply, but hopefully through this class that we had today, you were able to see a good way to do it, easy ways to do it, and then the benefits of doing it correctly. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, if you guys want to hang out and play on some pedals, you're more than welcome to do that as well. If you guys want to come and pick apart these pedal boards, see how we had them put together, do that as well. But we really like to thank you guys for coming out. This has been super fun. And we're just going to kind of hang out and talk a little bit about it after we're finished. And next weekend, we're going to have the Tonewood with Camden. It's going to be about different acoustic guitars and the sounds that the Tonewoods produce. What kind of fit that would be for you, what type of sound are you looking for. This might help you find the right guitar for you sooner. And then the following Saturday, our last Saturday session, we're going to have Josh Redinger, that is our guitar tech downstairs, come up, and he's going to give us a little bit of a setup orientation, go over the ins and outs of that. And then we're going to have a few different things happening. We have a local band coming to play with us next week at 6:30 on Wednesday night, and called Little Brown Coat. Old Brown Coat. Sorry about that. And Kathy's actually here with us today. She said she'd do a solo for us if we were really nice to her. But in any case, got some real cool stuff coming up. Also, Strings for Food. We're going to be doing that with DR Dario, teaming back up with those guys. Just bring in some canned food goods. Guitars for Vets as well. Yeah, so we're helping out with those guys. So come check us out. We're in Kaiser. We're a little music shop. We've got just about everything that you can want or need to play music with. We also have all of the maintenance and repair guys that you need to get playing as well. If you have something down or need a guitar set up, something looked at, bring it into us. We'd like to help you out with that. So in the meantime, thank you guys for showing up today and hanging out with us. I'd like to say Uptowners for life. So for sure, like I said, if you guys have any more questions or concerns, please feel free to ask me, and we'll talk about it. So thanks, guys.